That was a yikes for my girl Raftalia. She got daughter zoned in this episode. And you could just see from her reaction as soon as Naofumi uttered those words, she was extremely upset, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, when we think about their interaction as characters since the very beginning, episode 2, to where we're at right now of the story, Raftalia, she has a very complicated relationship with Naofumi. And seeing how she has slowly grown fond of him, and they're pretty much family at this point, and she's developed feelings for him, it makes sense. And you gotta imagine from her perspective, after really working so hard to be where she's at, building up the courage to be able to, save people that, might end up like her, stop people from ending up like her, where she loses her family or whatever, and she doesn't want that to happen to others, she's fallen in love with Naofumi. It's obvious when you think about how long they've been traveling together. And so when she was instantly daughter zoned in this episode, I know Raftalia was angry, but I think the fans in that moment, if you really are shipping Raftalia and Naofumi, you probably get a little bit irked because you're like, oh, here we go. MC's not going to really see our characters romantically, which in a way, I guess is good confirmation because it's not going to constantly lead us on to where Naofumi's like so indecisive and he doesn't know if he loves a certain individual or he wants to pick a certain girl. It just, he views Raftalia as a daughter. That's how he views her. Even if she might view him as like a potential lover, he views her like a daughter because she has helped him out so much. And you could kind of say Philo, that was introduced in this episode, she is basically the equivalent of another daughter for him. Like, his youngest daughter now that is introduced a part of the cast. So, I mean, overall, I guess it makes sense from Naofumi's perspective, but I feel like the shipping fans are going to be all up in arms after this episode. But okay, let's get into the main point. So, when we look at the main objective of what this episode was about, it was mainly about Pillow, however you pronounce her name, getting her own outfit. Because when you really do think about her transformation, shape-shifting from a bird to a human-like body, there is, a thing to where clothes will rip and break. And I do like how that little element to her character was added because it is realistic. I mean, even if this is a fantasy universe, you need to probably have proper gear, custom made just to be able to be used for her, or certain individuals that can shapeshift forms. And so, most of the episode was Naofumi trying to figure out a way to get Magical Fred for Philo could have her own outfit when she goes into her humanoid form. And so she would be able to, go around, be normal and all that, and she wouldn't have to look like a monster in front of a carriage, and she would be able to interact, talk, and not probably have to feel so lonely. Because there's one little scene in this episode that stands out that many might not have noticed. And it was that Philo is not really allowed to talk with strangers. Because when you do think about it, she is a strange individual. She's supposed to be like a normal creature that, just pulls carriages. That was what was established in the last episode. That's kind of what these type of creatures are. But then you find out one of these creatures can talk, they're a little bit different and all that, and you're like, whoa, what's going on here? People will probably start to target her, or, it'll just cause a lot of problems for Philo. And so, her being able to go into like a humanoid-like form, even though she'd be kind of looked at as a demi-human, which technically that is what she is in a way, she won't be as bad off. Like, she won't be looking like a freak of nature, or people won't just trying to sell her off, as merchandise to just pull carts or whatever, and that's her only, I guess, use in the world. She will have some form of personality and, I guess a way to express herself without feeling like a slave. And so that was really the true reason to why he wanted to get probably clothes for Philo, is for she can actually be a part of their group and not be excluded from conversations when someone else pops up and just doesn't understand the situation that they're currently in. Now, anyways, like I said, the point was to get it closed. And most of the episode, you didn't know if that objective was going to get accomplished or not. Because it starts off to where the magical gem for the witch, it wasn't there. It's completely out of stock. She does not have it. She doesn't know when she'll be able to get it because they're in, high demand or whatever. She's like, I don't know. And so, at that point, you're like, okay, so I guess this is going to be saved for another day. This is not going to be concluded this episode. Maybe, they'll find a random chest or something, and they might find her some clothing that could shapeshift to her form. Who really knows? But that's kind of what the beginning started off as, and you didn't know that was going to be the main objective of the episode until the final, portion, when she did get her outfit. Which, by the way, the girl that did make the outfit, I feel like they give so much life to that character. Like, look at her eyes. She has eye bags. Like, she is so freaking tired. She's exhausted to where she looks like she could fall over and die at any moment. But you can feel the passion from her. She's so passionate about making clothes and stuff and pretty designs for, different people in her world that, I respect that. Because I know for a fact when I get into a good game or a book, show, I can get pretty passionate about it, and, I can, kind of lose track of time. I could stay up all night long, and I didn't realize I see the sun coming through the window, and I'm like, oh crap, where did the whole day go? And I can respect that feeling, the passion that the clothes maker made for Philo, like, the clothes she made, and how much time she put into it. She definitely went all the way as far as she could, because she just loves what she does, her craft of work, and I just thought that was a great scene. It was a really cute scene. It doesn't really bring a whole lot, I guess, to the table in terms of maybe the next episode or episode after that, but it just shows that as a vendor, she loves what she does, and if, Naofumi ever needs to get more clothing or something, like, specially made, he could probably go to her and get something like that done. I think in terms of armor, she probably won't be able to make anything crazy. Like, I think more that vendor was, like, for, like, let's say leatherworking, maybe just regular clothing, but if you need, let's say, metal armor and all that chainmail, then I think you need to go back to the blacksmith if you want something really strong. But if you're like a magical caster, like a magic caster or whatever, then I guess go to her. Speaking of which, that is a perfect way to get into the next segment. We found out what Philo's main role of the group is going to be. Besides just pulling the carriage and, being as, like, the thing that pulls the carriage to get merchandise for Naofumi and all that, she is a magic caster. But not just a magic caster, she's also very strong brute force-wise. Like, she crushed that manticore, I believe's skull. And it's called a Nui or whatever in this episode, but I believe it's a manticore or a chimera. She crushed its skull with just her entire foot. And, I mean, granted, if you got hit by something that large going at that speed, it's gonna hurt. It's really gonna hurt. But just the sheer force of her hit with the leg, and you see the skull shatter, it proves that she isn't just about casting wind magic. She could be a secondary tank, a part of Naofumi's group, which could be very helpful, because it's what I talked about in my last episode review. When you form a party, you're doing an RPG, MMORPG, whatever, etc., you need a tank. A tank's got to soak up all the damage for the damage dealers can get in, take out what needs to be taken out, boss, other players, whatever. And so that's what Raphtalia is. She's a DPS. She goes in, she gets, the enemies out of the way, and, you have Naofumi that's soaking up everything. And normally, you have a tank, and then you have, like, a support/healer, and then you have maybe 3 DPSs. But in this case, Naofumi is a tank/support healer, so he's doing all the buffs, he's doing all the healing, he is also doing all the tanking to kind of aggro all the enemies towards himself, while someone like Raphtalia goes in. And we see from Philo, she's an individual that probably is tanky. I mean, when you look at her, bird-like design, she is really fluffy. She's massive. So you could assume that she would be able to soak up a lot of damage, or maybe in some cases be able to mitigate damage, absorb damage in a way, and it won't really affect her that much. And it's a bonus that she also has long-range attacks, too. She can use long-range attacks, stay near Naofumi, help him out, and shift out with him, go in and help out Raphtalia, because she does have the damage, but she could also probably soak up a little bit of damage for Naofumi's not tanking everything by himself. So it's nice to see what role Philo is going to have in the party, and I think everybody can appreciate that. Now, Naofumi, by the way, his reputation is moving on up in the world. Even though, yes, he's the shield hero, and we do get to see even the bandits were going to use his reputation against him, Naofumi is gaining a little bit of fame around with the normal civilians or traders. Like, he's been able to integrate, learn different things like jewel crafting as a profession, to be able to create gemstones or use gemstones to create, like, jewelry or whatever. Naofumi is moving up. He's getting a little bit more connections, moving on up through the world, and people are starting to recognize that he isn't really that bad guy, or he's someone at the very least that could make you money and help you make money. And so people are coming to him, asking for help or whatever, or, to be able to travel with him to get to the next location. So yeah, that's the good thing about this, is that Naofumi is gaining a reputation. It is not just negative from what the King in Mind did to him, since the very beginning. He has people that do respect him. Which, by the way, Philo, she also has a reputation that's building up. You see in this episode that one of the merchants is like, oh, she's a god. She's a god of domesticated birds. I believe that was the title that popped up. But it basically proves that it's not just, Naofumi, but Philo, which is such an odd creature, such a strong-looking creature pulling the cart, is really making a name, which would make Naofumi's cart stand out, which more merchants would want to come to him to be able to make business with him when they notice how unique his bird is leading the cart. So yeah, overall, in terms of merchant status, Naofumi is making waves. And it's like I said, unexpected spice in Wolf. You probably would never expect something like this from the series. I know for a fact I didn't. I mean, it looked like a typical isekai series. Yes, it had its darker tones to it, but I didn't expect to see a little bit of economics and, just selling goods in this series. And I have heard through, the light novel, like actually seeing it myself, that Naofumi was at one point in time, he's more preferable of merchant characters than anything else, so it does make sense why he's so good at it in, this episode, why he's able to just go through different towns, give a pass and all that because he's a traveling merchant. It shows his skill where he's really knowledgeable in. But I think that's about it. It's a good episode, but it's very simplistic. There's not a whole crazy amount of things that happen besides one thing towards the end or middle half of the episode, finding out that the spear hero has apparently grabbed a legendary seed and has given it to a village that has famine, or was having famine problems. But the description of the seed that was in the dungeon was that it's a seed that should never be grabbed out of the chest. It should not. It'll bring great, catastrophe, or, it'll bring a disaster to any village that tries to plant it, which means that the village that was given that seed is probably going to have a really bad problem come up very soon, and I'm curious if that's going to get fixed, or if that's going to be kind of elaborated on in the future. But that's it for now. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. And with that, I love you guys. Be safe. Chibi out.